Alright. I'm gonna try something a bit different today. Since normally I try gaming videos, I'll try some commentary today. And hoping this doesn't get taken down because of the editing, but of course this video is going over one of my own characters. So you better not try nothing YouTube because this is my own creation. So this character of mine is Cyberman. As many of you probably don't know, since I only upload gaming videos so far, I am a writer. And Cyberman was my first ever created character, where I created 8 years ago, I believe. Yes, it was 8 years ago when I was 11 years old. And so now trying to use YouTube as a pathway to, I guess, promote more of myself, get more of a presence. Now, Cyberman as a character, he was created when I was like only a superhero kid. By that, I mean, at this point in time, I didn't really get into anime yet. I didn't get into anime till I was like 13 in middle school. And I always knew of anime because, my parents liked it. So I always knew of Naruto and Inuyasha, and then played the Storm games and played the Xenoverse games and seen Dragon Ball, and would talk to friends about Super when it was coming out and all that. But it wasn't until like One Piece in the 8th grade at 13 where I got like really into anime, where I actually made some of my own manga concepts, which I lost count of because I think there's like 10, some of which have full story outlines, some of which barely have anything. But this was before all that, back in 6th grade at the age of 11, as previously mentioned. And at this point in time, I'd say my writing abilities as a middle schooler were not up to par at all. Because, once I got to high school, I started to reevaluate what I did, looking at my concepts and characters. And it was just like a whole bunch of ripoffs. Because middle school, what originally drew me to writing was design. So I think my middle school self just kind of threw new designs on character templates and just kind of had a bunch of reskins. So I would look at my characters. I'd just be like, yep, this is rip-off Iron Man. That's a rip-off Batman. There's a rip-off Deadpool, rip-off Doctor Doom. This even spread to the manga concepts like, rip-off One Piece, rip-off Bleach, rip-off My Hero. Somehow, I don't know why middle school me wanted to go for that. So a lot of my high school time was basically spent rechanging, rewriting, reevaluating a whole bunch of stuff because middle school me didn't really have all that much substance. He just had cool looking characters with cool powers. And I can imagine some of you, by looking at Cyberman, can tell who he used to be a ripoff of, because he very much has some Iron Man influence. Now, of course, in high school times, I tried to change that. He still has some similarities with Iron Man, obviously being a rich billionaire with a superpowered suit and a genius. And frankly, I'm still not a fan of those similarities, but they're not like, at this point, I guess like, I just kind of had to deal with them because they're so rooted to his character that they're more superficial, similarities, and not to the point like before where he was just a reskin Iron Man down to personality and everything. Even then, I'm still always trying to add new stuff or change characters because I don't like how similar they are to other characters. A lot of my similarities nowadays are more so subconscious because I actively try and differentiate my characters so as to not seem like ripoffs, to the point where most, like 90% of the similarities are probably subconscious, and then the 10% is like conscious inspiration. So now that all's been established, I can actually go over and start talking about my character Cyberman, about what he's supposed to be. I guess in the normal circumstance, one would call this a character analysis or character essay. But, given the fact that I made a character, I don't know if it'd quite be an analysis. It's more of a commentary from the writer. So, first off, we'll go over some of the more in-your-face aspects, like Cyberman being a billionaire with a suit. Now, obviously, I like sci-fi. Both my current comic books out are sci-fi, though I am more of a fantasy man myself because I find that I like sci-fi and fantasy both to a high extent, but when looking at my characters and concepts, I seem to like the fantasy ones more. And really, because of that, I think it's more so a matter of the fact that fantasy is more flexible. Because you can have a fantastical world and a fantastical setting, but still have elements of sci-fi and sci-fi settings and characters within that fantasy world. But if you have a strict sci-fi high-tech world, then having magic or having fantasy elements is harder to implement. Just look at something like Bleach and One Piece. Both of those are fantastical worlds, but One Piece you have like Frankie and Vegapunk, whereas Bleach you got like Kisuke and Mayuri. So despite the fact that they're both magical, fantastical in nature, they still have those high-tech elements that I'd argue get to shine even more because of how fantastical the rest of the world is. So you get to see just how high their technology can compete. So Cyberman was chosen to be my first comic because, obviously he was the first character I created, so that's the first book. And, my second comic just happened to be a character that, had probably had one of the shortest origin stories I could do. So, smaller book as opposed to some of these other characters that would need like, whole mini series or series to establish all the jumbled dots I have. So yeah, Cyberman, he's got the, tech. For those wondering that haven't read the book, which you should, link in my Instagram at FoxL777, shameless plug. But he's more gravity based with his suit. Like his suit manipulates gravity, and he has a lot of drones and nanotech, and that's basically the core of his stuff. He has portals and things like that. Though portals aren't really used all too much in his book. They'd probably be used in later vestiges. But yeah, he's definitely had that tech influence because people like Iron Man and Blue Beetle are some of my favorite characters from Marvel and DC. Heck, I've even thought about, making some videos, commentary of my favorite Marvel and DC characters separately. So that's like the basics of his design and powers, but let's go further deep, like into his character. So obviously the whole rich philanthropist things. And obviously in comics, there's a whole lot of rich guys and rich stuff. Not even comics, just comics, but manga and movies, they have a whole lot of rich guys because, rich guys make the plot easier to give them fun toys and tools and stuff. But of course, it's always nice to see not so rich, not so well endowed characters for relatability. But, in this context, rich helps with all the tech and stuff. You can see how far it goes. But since there's so many rich people in the aspect of Cyberman, I wanted to make his richness a curse, if you're with me, because in this story his mom is essentially a mafioso. So yeah, he's got like a mob empire, and his mob boss of a mom is trying to groom him into a mafioso. Because I wanted to make a distinguishing feature, so I turned that richness into a curse, basically, instead of a blessing. So it's something that has an impact on his psyche and on his mentality, because it's not from a place of good. Well, technically, it is from a place of good if you look before his mom, the previous generations of his family. But in the generation he was born into, it's, a curse placed upon him, placed upon his psyche that he's had to live with. Now, Cyberman mentally, he's not like all the way there. And by all the way there, I mean like he's not unbreakable in terms of willpower like some of these other characters. He's more of, I guess, like... what's the word? I guess more so ambiguous in his mentality. Something like a roguish character, like a Han Solo or a Constantine, because I've noticed roguish characters like that always have tended to be my favorite characters in franchises, like Constantine or Han Solo and things like that. And I think that's because they don't have an unbreakable morality or unbreakable wills like some of the Supermen and whatnot. But because they have not exactly bad, but they're not all the way good. Some of them are a little, I guess, ambiguous. Now, of course, Cyberman, he's not directly under this archetype. Like, he's not a street rat, roguish character. But he's, like, not a Superman. And this isn't to discredit Superman, because I'd say characters like a Superman or a Naruto or a Luffy have gotten a bad rep because their innate personalities, I'd say, are so strong that it, like, I guess, puts a shield around their characters. And by that, I mean some people combine personality and character. Like, they're not able to see the difference. So Superman, Luffy, Naruto, maybe Captain America, maybe even Spider-Man, their innate will, their innate personality are so strong and unbreakable that to some it looks like they don't even have characters, when, that's not necessarily the case. A character doesn't need to change their philosophical beliefs. but their just beliefs happen to be so strong that it's like a shield around your mind, because all you can see is their will from the outside looking in until you look deeper. Because I used to be one of those people that disliked Superman or found Naruto to be a mid or just a decent anime MC or things like that. But as I've grown, I've looked deeper into the difference between personality, character development, characteristics, as I've tried to establish more of my characters. So as stated, Cyberman, he doesn't have an unbreakable will, because for him, I wanted him to be one of those characters that their will is not all the way standing, but he's still standing. Like he's walking on a tightrope, and by all means, he should be bad. By all means, he has every excuse imaginable to be a bad guy. He has every resource, every excuse, but he still chooses to be good. Because I feel like, that's just what hooked me into superheroes originally. Back when I first made them, like I said, I wasn't a fan of Superman. So he had a lot more roguish influence, or a lot more of those characters with wishy-washy mentalities. Because those were just, what impacted me at the time. Now, of course, nowadays I have respect and liking for Superman or Luffy's, Naruto's, Captain America's. Those were strong wills. And I have many characters influenced and with those personality types, but Cyberman isn't quite one of them. He's constantly on a tightrope. Like his will isn't a shield around him. His willpower is a rope that he's holding on to and tightrope walking at all times, but always staying up, always not falling. And if he does fall, he catches the rope with his hands and climbs back up and crawls. It's not a vault, it's an open house that he has to guard. And so I'd say Cyberman, the best way to describe what I'm trying to do with him is the video title I made, with that being Standing Behind Broken Glass. Because when looking at Cyberman, it reminds me of glass. When looking at his psyche of what I'm trying to convey, of what I try to make. It's like the glass is there. Like imagine glass is his psyche. Glass is his mentality. And the glass is broken. It's shattered. It's fractured. But it's not on the floor. The glass, although it's shattered, broken, fractured, it's still standing. The window is up, guarding him from the bullets of the evil and the morally reprehensible actions. That's the word. So while the glass is shattered and it's broken, and by all means, most other people would be walking on the broken glass and bleeding and succumbing to the pain, his glass is still holding up. He's still holding it up as that window, as that bulletproof window. So yeah, I think that's a good symbolism, or like a good way to put it. I just didn't exactly put it too good. But yeah, that broken, fractured glass, but it's still standing even if it's broken and it's fractured. All them shards are taped or glued, or stapled, however you want. They're still holding together even if they're broken to make that window. So although he's broken, he's still unbreakable.